All right, welcome back, guys. Obviously, this is not going to be a usual Rocket League video. We certainly are getting back to those very soon, but this is a pretty serious situation that has gone on for a long, long time, giving this guy multiple chances to come back and resolve it cleanly and quietly. And it's obvious that he doesn't want to do the right thing. It's a lot of stuff. Obviously, the situation's been going on for over a year at this point, so I've got information written down here. I don't want to leave anything out. I want to give you guys the absolute complete full story, so I'm going to have to be reading off my phone for a good part of this. But, first off, I want to make it very, very clear that I do not want to be making this video at all. I do not want to have it get to this point. I really, really don't. Throughout this entire situation, I've gone to ridiculous extents to try and resolve this with him, directly. The reason that this comes over a year after the original incident is because even though this guy attempted to block me and run away with my money multiple separate times, I always forgave him, told him how we could talk about how to work it out, come up with payment plans. I offered him unreasonably long amounts of time to repay me. The second most recent time that he tried to run, block me and run away with my money, I even offered him the chance to pay less than half of what was owed to me. I mean, when does that happen? That you owe a debt to somebody, and the person you owe it to is like, oh, okay, well, just because I want to get this resolved, you can pay less than half of the money you took from me. Even though that money went directly from me back to you, I know you have it. I'll still only take less than half. That's obviously not a situation that happens most often. So despite all the lies he fed me literally on a daily basis for months on end, I wanted to believe him and his story that the situation was all a mistake from the beginning and that there were just a series of ridiculous coincidences coming up every single time he claimed he could pay me back. I wanted nothing more than to just get back the money I had lost, or even a fraction of it, without having to make this a bigger issue. So, to WolfyFuze slash Joel Brisk, the scammer we're talking about, I want to let you know we can still work it out. I mean, obviously, you've made it pretty clear that you are trying to run with my money, but if you unblock me and pay me back, I will take this video down immediately. I do think that, considering how many chances I gave you, people should know about the situation, both to avoid getting scammed by you or to avoid getting scammed in a similar way, similar method, but my intent is still the same as it has been from the beginning. I just want to get my money back and move on from the situation. It's been stressing me out on the daily for over a year, and I'm ready to be done with it. So, getting into the details of what happened. We met on August 3rd, 2018, through a subscriber from my channel. He wanted to buy a bunch of stuff, literally an absolute ton of stuff. It was kind of surprising me that he had all the money for it. He ended up buying, at the time, what was every aspect of my most expensive preset. So this included White Octane, White Zombas, I guess it was Heatwave at the time. There were a bunch of BMDs in total. I know Crimson Volts were in there. So, the amounts were $125, $24, $140, $32, and $18. All of them were separate transactions, which admittedly I should have thought was a little suspicious. I'm still kind of confused as to why he did that, because if he was going to charge back anyways, I'm not sure why it would be more advantageous to have that in multiple transactions than just one. But, either way, it looks suspicious. August 11th, there was a dispute opened for the $18 charge. Joel claimed that it was his mom. He told me that his mom accidentally made the charge, thinking that it was fraud or something. That was the excuse that he gave me at the time. On August 12th, he promised to cancel the dispute. So obviously, this is not a complicated process at all. It would take you no more than maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 if you're being really slow. It's very, very simple. You know, you can Google it. Canceling a PayPal dispute is not complicated in the least. Obviously, he didn't do that. On August 20th, a dispute was actually opened for the $140 transaction. This is where I started to second guess him, as it makes no sense for another dispute to pop up once he supposedly told his mom about the situation. With my account in the negatives, I was no longer able to use my sponsor payments, as they all went towards the negative balance I shouldn't have had. I also couldn't buy or sell using PayPal, shutting down a lot of business that I had going. I do think I lost a lot of business because I wasn't able to use PayPal for a while. On August 30th, $140 was reversed back to him, and I was charged a $20 chargeback fee. So on top of all these individual transactions that were eventually reversed back to him, there was a $20 chargeback fee that PayPal charged me for each transaction. So, I mean, I'm not sure if he was just trying to be malicious or not, because I guess that could have explained why there were multiple different transactions instead of one, because if just one had gone back, it would have only been 20 for me, but since there were 4 out of the total 5 transactions that went back to him, that was $80 in chargeback fees that was charged to me. So I don't actually think that's why it is. I guess I'm just guessing at this point. September 18th, promised I would be paid back when he got his paycheck, claiming that would be within 2 to 4 days. Over the entire situation, he's promised me that we just have to wait for his next paycheck tons of times, dates of which are never consistent. Sometimes he knows when that supposedly will be. Sometimes he claims that Safeway doesn't tell their employees when they're getting paid, which just makes no sense. I mean, Safeway is an absolutely enormous company, and, you know, they're not going to just not pay their employees for a few months, which is what he claimed. Literally, you will hear about it. So, September 25th, claimed he hadn't paid yet because he had been sick, and somehow being sick prevented him from using the computer. You can start to see how lenient I was being with his obvious lies. As you'll see, he gets sick a lot. He gets sick like almost every month, and it, you know, doesn't allow him to do anything else. When he's sick, he can't use a computer, he can't, you know, use a phone, he can't use the Xbox, but he can text or message. He can't use anything else, but when he's sick, he can text or message. September 30th, he claimed he was getting his paycheck on September 31st, 9 to 11 days after he claimed his previous paycheck came. I know that Safeway either pays weekly or bi-weekly, so obviously his claims weren't lining up with the facts. October 16th said he had all the money to pay me back, but he couldn't yet because PayPal froze his account. Kind of weird how you can open disputes on your PayPal, but you can't do anything else. It's a little strange. I suggested another payment method like Venmo. October 17th, the very next day, he claimed that he no longer had all of the money that he had the previous day, and he had a gun safety class to make up because he was on a cruise the previous week. He was on a cruise. Do you guys know how much cruises cost? Like, do you know? Because I've never been on a cruise. People think I'm quote-unquote rich for what I've got in my Rocket League inventory. I am not rich. I literally have, $150 in my bank account right now. So you guys can see how 400 plus is actually kind of a big deal to me. And, you know, just being able to pay for a cruise, but not being able to, you know, pay back a debt, kind of weird. Obviously, I don't think that he was paying for that cruise, but still, that shows the amount of money that his family has. According to his story, he was sick from somewhere around September 23rd until October 3rd, and during this period, he was so ill that he couldn't use a computer or phone, except to send messages, of course, but somehow he was well enough to go on a cruise soon after. October 19th, claimed he couldn't send Venmo because Venmo had a 3% fee on credit cards, and somehow this was an enormous issue. He claimed he was going to wait for his bank to send him a debit card before paying, claimed the card would be either there that day or the next day. This was kind of weird to me because I don't think any bank is able to get a debit card to a person in under 1 day. So that was just kind of an odd promise to make. I mean, I think at this point he's starting to understand that he can really mess with me, manipulate me, and I would, forgive him, give him more and more chances. But it was just kind of weird that he, gave a optimistic estimate like that. Obviously, he's not telling the truth about any of this stuff, but in the story that he wants to put into my head, it got to make some sort of logical sense. So, October 25th, there was a multiple disputes opened for the $32, $24, and $125 transactions. Joel claims that he called PayPal and they said the disputes were made at the same time as the first couple, but somehow didn't show up for months. This is obviously not even close to being believable, but also contradicts his previous stories. At that time, the focus was getting on the focus was on getting the $140 transaction back to me, as it had already been reversed back to him, knew he had it, and he no longer had the option to just cancel the disputes. If there had been 3 more disputes sitting in his PayPal, there's no way we would go through the entire situation over 3 months without him seeing them. Also, the 140 transaction was reversed back to him about 10 days after the dispute was open. As it turns out, the 3 other transactions were reversed back to him 12 days after the disputes were open, a very similar amount of time, leading me to believe that he had opened them then and the PayPal story was crap, which it obviously was. October 30th, promised the first 140 would be paid by November 2nd. October 31st, claims the debit card he was waiting on got lost in the mail, so he had another one sent out. Said that if he didn't have it by November 2nd, he would try to find $4 to afford the credit card fee. Remember, this kid can drop the better part of $400 on Rocket League items in an afternoon, but somehow $4 for a fee was impossible? Kind of weird. You can see how stories start to get more and more ridiculous. November 2nd came around. Obviously, he didn't follow through on his promises, claimed he was sick again and had attempted to send the payment, but it was pending, and his credit card company was closed for the next 2 days. Promised it would be paid by November 4th. November 4th, $18 transaction was decided in my favor and reimbursed back to me. That was the one transaction out of all 5, of course it had to be the smallest one too, that somehow was decided in my favor, while all of the other ones weren't. So I was very confused as to why this happened. I mean, obviously, it kind of sucks that PayPal drops the ball on allowing stuff like this to happen, because I did respond to their requests for information about the claim. I sent them images of me delivering the stuff. I had the clips and everything, and somehow it didn't work out, but that one $18 transaction was reversed to me. So Joel claimed that he didn't have time yet, but he promised that it would be paid the next day, November 5th. November 5th claimed it would be paid later that night or the following day. November 6th didn't give a new excuse this time, just asked if I would take a pair of white Zombas as a trust item until he paid me back. I made it very clear I didn't want to extend the situation further, but would accept that if nothing else would work. November 7th, the 125, 32, and 24 transactions taken from my account, along with $20 chargeback fee for each, totaling $401 lost, including all chargeback fees and the $18 that came back to me. Joel said that his paycheck would hit the account the next day, November 8th, and I would be paid then. November 9th said that he would pay later that day or the next day, but he could only do $25 now. November 10th said he could only do $15 to $20 instead. November 11th, a scam account impersonating me was made, asking subscribers for donations, and the only friend on the account was Joel's friend, who brought him to me in the first place, the subscriber that originally introduced him to me. This third guy is kind of strange. For a while, he was a great subscriber that, I actually hung out with on a couple of occasions, and he was decent. Once this situation with the scammer started happening, he was the weirdest person ever. He was switching sides like you'll not believe, and trying to cause conflict where there wasn't reason for conflict. He was telling both of us lies and coming back, giving either of us weird information. It was strange. But So I was kind of wondering about the scam account. Was that him? Was that Joel? November 11th, Joel said he could only pay 10 instead of 15 to 20 now, claiming another $5 would be sent the next day. He did pay me the $10 over Venmo. It was likely to restore my faith for a bit and extend the situation. Promised to pay every 2 to 3 days after that. November 16th, claimed he would be sending $50, quote-unquote, soon. November 19th, said he would be paid the next day and could send $100 on November 20th. November 21st, claims he read the pay board wrong and was actually getting paid on the 23rd. November 23rd, claimed it would be sent either that night or the next day. November 27th, claimed his paycheck got lost in the mail, but said he would go talk to his manager, but couldn't because he was sick yet again. And of course, you can't do anything while you're sick. December 6th, claimed he hadn't gotten his paycheck from 2 weeks prior. December 15th, claims he still hadn't gotten any of his previous 3 paychecks, but he would pay by the weekend. December 18th, this is when I got a letter from a legitimate debt collector on the behalf of PayPal. Obviously, it was because of the negative balance that had been sitting in my account from the situation. At this point, it was a bigger issue. I mean, it could affect my future credit score. I resolved the negative balance by paying more of my own personal money so that it wouldn't be an issue. Memory card might go out here soon, so if, we have to cut, that's why. So there wouldn't be an issue between PayPal and I. Joel gave me a phone number, claiming it was his mom's. This is where it gets a little sad. I'll show that exchange now. He pretended to be his mom for a little bit, literally pretending to be his own mom over text, before admitting it was actually him much later on. We'll get to that part later. While pretending to be his mom, he said that she would have him message me on Xbox instead of continuing the text conversation. Obviously, at this point, he's fed me tons of lies, but I just thought, this one was a little lazy and a little funny. December 23rd, made a vid about the situation, but was extremely careful not to share any of his information, despite all the shit he put me through, and I still had some faith that he would make it right. Claimed he would have some money 2 days later on Christmas. December 31st, claimed his mom was lending him $100 to pay me the next day. Didn't respond at all for the next 2 weeks. I saw him online on Xbox quite often, actually, but he was not responding to any of my attempts to contact him. And honestly, that could have been his first attempt to run, but, it wasn't as long of a gap as the others. It wasn't as clear that he was trying to run during that time. So, I believe a lot of crap from this guy, but, some's just too far. January 15th, he told me that he wasn't able to respond for the past 2 weeks because his grandma had died, and he personally had to pay for the funeral. I personally don't want to risk saying something insensitive in the case that this is the one thing out of all the lies he fed me that he told the truth about. I'm still playing devil's advocate for him. I'm still, really, really assuming the best, considering all of this. But you guys can see how hard it is to believe all of these coincidental situations coming up exactly when he promised to pay me back. Also, an average funeral is $6,000 to $10,000, and it's a little hard for me to believe that somebody with no more than $10 to send me to repay his debt, without receiving a paycheck in months, supposedly, had, $6,000 to $10,000 to pay for a funeral. January 16th, he said that he would pay me in the next couple days. January 21st, I invited him to a party and he immediately went offline. Said he, quote-unquote, didn't mean it to seem like that, and claimed he would get his paycheck and be able to pay on January 30th. February 3rd, said he would pay the next day, February 4th. Until February 21st, completely ignored me. Claimed that he would talk soon and explain why he had been gone, but never did. February 26th said he might have time to tell me what was going on, but had work right after school. No idea why he couldn't explain in any of the message he had the time to send me, what was going on. He had the time to, text me multiple times, but not explain, what the issue was, even short in summary. So he completely ignored me after this until April 20th. So that's literally 2 full months. This is his first attempt to run. On April 20th, he decided to stream on Mixer along with the guy who introduced him to me in the first place. A guy who is seeming more and more like an accomplice in this entire thing. I started recording them and invited him to a party so I could catch his reaction on stream.
Oh shit, Jack invited me. Logan, it's a party on invite only.
If he comes in here, I'm gonna grab his IP. Hey! What?
Hang on, is the party on invite? I think it is on invite only now since you have it on a, what is it called?
You should, FedEx me some or something like that.
In any case, I messaged him at this point about how I had proof of his accomplice threatening crimes against me, and also offered to reduce the total amount owed to get the situation resolved sooner. He finally responded, giving empty promises about figuring out how to resolve the situation. We talked on the phone where we agreed on a payment plan, but of course that never resulted in much. So let's just talk. I mean, first off, my approach is still the same as it has been. As long as we can get this solved, I really don't want to make it a bigger issue. I feel like that's obviously not what I've wanted since the very beginning. So, can you kind of explain what happened the other night when you decided to block me and such?
What do you want me to explain? Just why? Or
Yeah, I mean, what was the change of heart? I mean, obviously, it seems like...
money and I see why you're getting frustrated, and it's just,
Well, I mean, didn't you get your paycheck really recently?
Yeah, then I didn't send some of it to you, and I have to use it on car, and then I spend it on lunch money, and then, yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I can totally understand if you've got other places where that money needs to go, but you can see how that comes across really poorly when you just block me. I mean, if you need more time, we can certainly talk about that, but I don't think running from the problem is the best way out.
Yeah.
So, I mean... I really do want to believe you. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff between us that has turned out to be false, and it's really hard for me to keep trying to have such a positive and faithful attitude when, I've been put on hold for 9 months. But tell me what you think would be a realistic plan. Like, be honest with me, man. Like, did you actually spend all of your paycheck within 4 days?
I mean, there's a few dollars, but pretty much,
Okay, well, I mean, if that's really the truth, go ahead and tell me what you think you could manage. I offered him the opportunity to pay only $180 instead of the $401 I personally lost, a ridiculously generous offer considering how hard he had been screwing me over for months on end. He started responding on his phone again, confirming that he had been pretending to be his own mom earlier that year. April 22nd, claimed he was trying to get the money. I told him we could do $200 even at the end of April instead because, he wasn't able to keep his previous promises for the $180. April 30th, claims his paycheck should arrive the next day. Evening of May 1st, promised he would send it within an hour or two. Later claimed it would have to be the next day, May 2nd. On May 6th, he claims that he could only do $20 now. May 7th, Joel paid $20. Again, it's pretty obvious that this was done in an attempt to extend the situation further. May 13th, claimed he was actually getting his paycheck at the end of the month, not halfway as he had thought. Said he was going on another cruise starting on the 26th. I mean, literally, this guy has gone on 2 cruises in half a year, and he can't afford more than a total of $30 towards the $419 that is owed. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, I honestly can't believe that I took his bullshit for so long. I believed this crap that he was feeding me, and I kind of just let it go. But anyways, from then until June 17th, he continued to give me a series of empty promises, excuses, and more empty promises, as he had been doing for the previous 9 months. Stopped responding on June 17th, was still seeing my texts until he turned off read receipts on June 22nd. So this was his most recent attempt to run, and I haven't heard from him until this most recent thing that I'm going to talk about briefly. Sometime in late July, I sent a packet detailing the situation to his address in the hopes that I would get it in the hands of his mom. Never heard back, so I can only assume that he intercepted it or his mom doesn't care about the situation. On August 27th, I gave him notice that I would be making this very video if he didn't come back and resolve the situation, at which point he responded, pretending to be his mom, yet again. I think that's so funny that, like, that's his thing, pretending to be his mom. It's sad, but anyways, pretending to be his mom again. He said something about talking to attorneys and police, honestly attempting to convince me that the legal system, law enforcement, the legal system, would side with a criminal, not only a scammer, but also someone cooperating with people attempting to pull my IP address and threaten me with it, a felony under CFAA A7 with a sentence of fines or up to 5 years in prison. I'll put that graphic up for you guys right now, but you can Google that yourself. CFAA, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So that brings us up to the present. He has my phone blocked, my Xbox account's blocked, and he's confirmed to other people that he's seriously trying to run away with my money this time. Again, if Joel wants to come back and resolve the issue for real this time, I'm completely open. But if not, we're going to have to move forward with legal action against him. This has already been such a stress and a hassle over such a long period of time. There's no way that I'm going to let it go at this point. I mean, just my personality. I'm not one to waste time, energy, resources on a situation and then just leave it halfway through. I mean, since we're in it, we're going to finish it one way or another. I really, really don't want it to be nasty, messy. I don't want to take this guy to court. I mean, it could make for some pretty interesting content, but I don't want to go to that point. You know, I just want my money back and for it to be done with. So, let's see. No way that I would let it go at this point. If we have to move ahead with legal action, we'll be suing for the full amount owed, plus chargeback fees and damages regarding time, resources devoted to the situation. Factor in legal fees, and Joel would be looking at least $1,000 or more. I still can't believe that he thought that paying only $180 of the debt to resolve the entire situation wasn't a better option, but obviously I'm not feeling that generous anymore. So, we'll see, I guess. I mean, yeah. I've had so much confidence in it, but recently it's just not the same. And you guys can see why. I mean, he's led me on for a long, long time, and it's pretty nasty. I'll certainly keep you guys updated regarding this, and hopefully I can share news about finally getting resolved at some point in the future. Again, I hate to make this into a video. as you can see, it took more than an entire year of being manipulated, lied to, scammed, and swindled to get me to this point, but this is where we are now. So, as always, I appreciate your support, and hopefully we'll have some more positive, usual content coming very soon. Thanks for your attention. If you've got any questions about the situation, or if you know this guy, WolfyFuze, if you know anything about him, I would like to hear your stories, because I don't really think that this is something that he's just going to do once, with a YouTuber of all people, and then never do again, especially if he thinks that he can get away with it. So it looks like my face cam stopped recording. That was actually pretty funny. It happened just then. That was good timing, but I think we're about at the end now. So I appreciate your guys' support, and yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on the situation. I'll catch you guys on the next one.